Okay, John, let's get into this. You and I both know it very well. Um, Anybody who's been around for a little bit knows what I'm talking about, but maybe some of the younger viewers don't know what I'm talking about. And that is the Rompola Buck from 1998, Michigan. Now, John knows this because he's from Michigan, but it was, just to give you a little bit of background, a guy named Mitch Rompola, so-called, killed this buck outside of Traverse City, Michigan. It was hailed as the next world record, 220 and 6/8, typical. For full disclosure, deer and deer hunting, I was here at the time. I was not in charge. Deer and deer hunting stood by the story. This was before cell phones. This is, basically at the cusp of the internet. There wasn't much out there for outside of print media. And we actually, the deer and deer hunting had some articles on it. There was people that vouched for the authenticity of this deer. But once the story got out, there was a lot of skepticism. I don't want to talk about any of the sinister stuff behind it because I don't think we can. I don't want to talk about any of the personalities. I just want to ask you flat out, John, somebody from Central Michigan, you've lived there your whole life, you hunted there your whole life, you worked in the hunting industry, I think, pretty much your whole life. Was the Rompola Buck real, fake, or something else?
No.
Was not real.
No. In my personal opinion, obviously, I have no solid proof of that. I've been a scorer for CBM since 1985, and Mitch was the scoring chairman at the time, and I still have the certificate when I became a scorer with his signature on it. I did one seminar with Mitch at the Lansing Center. I think it was at a Michigan Deer Spectacular in the late 80s, maybe. And then I also repped for a company called Golden Eagle Archery in the 90s, early 90s. And then they were bought by Bear Archery, and then they disbanded. They got rid of the Golden Eagle. But I was at a Michigan Deer Expo. I don't remember the year. It would have been in the mid-90s. And Mitch was there with CBM. CBM had a big booth because people were bringing their bucks in to have them score them. And Mitch came over and got me. And he pulled me into the back room where the CBM booth was. And he had a lockbox. And this was very, very interesting to me, and I will never forget it. He had this lockbox, big white lockbox, and he unlocked it, and he pulled this antler out. And it looked almost identical to the Jordan buck, which was the world record for ever.
Wisconsin.
It was just a huge, massive one side shed of a 10 point, and that one side scored 98 inches. Well, as soon as that antler was pulled out of the box, I could tell that antler had been laying out on the ground for a long period of time because the bone was all weather checked. Mitch told me he found this shed 2 days after it was shed from deer because he said he had a picture of it. So if you would have taken 98 inches and it was a very typical side,
5-point side, you'd been looking well over 200 inches.
You'd be looking at 196 inches without spread.
Without the
so
spread.
So if you threw a 20-inch spread on there, you'd be at 216, which was just enough at the time.
Hansen buck was 213.
Milo Hansen was the record at the time.
Yeah, 213 and 5/8, or I don't know what the change was, but
So it would have been a new world record. And I didn't say anything to Mitch about the weather checking, but it was extremely obvious to me that antler was not a.
So it was like all bleached white and porous, or?
No, he had colored it over and put some stain on it, which was also very obvious to me. But you could see through that. You know what a weather check antler was.
Yep.
I mean, it had been laying outside probably for a couple of years. And in Michigan, there is no way an antler lays outside for a couple of years without being gnawed on.
Mice, porcupines, everything else chewing it up.
Usually they're gone. So, but you can go out to some arid states, like Kansas or Missouri, and you can find sheds that are 2 or 3 years old and they haven't been chewed on, but they are weather checked and cracked really bad. So anyway, I mentally made a note, and he said he found it behind the Myers store up in Traverse City. I made a mental note that, okay, why is he showing me this shed, which would be a potential new world record? And it obviously to a non-trained eye, somebody wouldn't be able to tell that that was weather checked and wasn't a fresh shot. Well, Mitch at the time also had the state record in Michigan, which was 182-inch 12 point. So I just put that off in the back of my mind. And then in 98, as you said, I thought it was in the early 2000s. 98, he supposedly shot this big monster. And just to speed up the process here, he refused to get an x-ray. Okay. Because the only way you can prove bone is through an x-ray.
Right.
Now, if somebody shot a world record animal, which was probably going to be worth $1 million in endorsements, and Mitch did not have
Back
a lot
then,
of money.
yes. Okay.
Why would you not want to x-ray it if it's above board? There is absolutely no reason not to x-ray it to prove that it's 100% bone and not something that a taxidermist made up. And I have talked to world-class taxidermists. We got Wildlife Gallery right here by us. They have several world-class taxidermists there, and I've had stuff mounted by them. And they said, yeah, they could alter antlers on the ground on the deer, and you'd never ever know it.
What do you mean? Like how would they alter them?
They can actually cut, add bone,
Yep,
change things, make tines longer, whatever. And in my opinion, that's what happened. And again, I cannot prove that. But when I look at the picture of the deer, the brow tines are way out on the beams, way farther out on the beams.
We'll show you a picture here. Plus the spread, it was just insane.
And the spread was 30.5-inch inside spread. But
30.5 inside inch spread.
30.5
on a
30.5-inch inside
on a deer
spread.
from Michigan.
On a deer from Traverse City, Michigan, which is not known for big bucks.
See if my memory, let me see if my memory, because I actually remember working on this.
Yeah.
It was, what I did was we went back and we looked at the now this is after the fact. This was years and years later. I went back and looked, out of all the deer that were entered in Michigan record books, there was millions of them. I mean, if you went over all the years, or no, I didn't say that. I went back, I figured all the deer ever killed in Michigan from the turn of the century. So I added it up. Right. It was X amount of million deer were killed in Michigan. There was, I think, 4 deer in Boonacrocka, Pope and Young, CBM, 4 up until that point that had inside spreads that exceeded 25 inches. 4.
Yes.
Now this is like 3 or 4 years after the famous Rompola Buck. We actually did a follow-up. Richard Smith wrote the article. Here are 3 more deer that Mitch killed since then. Oh, my God. All 3 of those, including the other one, so now 4 deer from Traverse City, Michigan, which you can tell the viewers in a second, the soil conditions in Traverse City, Michigan. He killed 4 deer with spreads exceeding 25 inches over a course of 5 years, when there was 8 million deer killed since 1900 and only 4 were in the books before that had over 25-inch spread. I don't know. I'm calling bullshit on that. I mean, I don't know. But anyways, talk about Traverse City.
It's interesting that you say that, because that's actually where I was going next. And also keep in mind, this buck in 98 was just shot a couple of years after he showed me the shed of what would have been another world record buck from Traverse City a couple years earlier.
And then whatever happened
to that. That's 2 world record bucks. And as anybody knows, world record bucks over 200-inch typicals, that's an anomaly. I mean, that's a rarity. That takes serious genetics. And Traverse City is a very sandy area of the state. I mean, that's where all of our sand dunes are, is up there along the Wheeling-Off Peninsula and stuff. And I think other than Mitch's 180-incher, I think the biggest buck from Grand Traverse County at the time was 151 inches of all the bucks that were ever
all the bucks ever entered, 150.
Grand Traverse County.
Yeah.
So also there was another little caveat there. A guy named Craig Calderon.
Yep, I got the name written down.
He used to have the rights to the current world record buck, the Milo Hansen buck. And he used to take a little trailer around to shows, and I don't remember if it was $2 or $5 to walk through the trailer.
Yep.
He had his buck. He had a
it.
huge 16-point. Plus, he had the Milo Hansen buck. I don't know if it was a replica or what, but he was charging people to look at that. So he got kind of bummed out, pissed off, I guess, because Mitch would not And there was some friction between Mitch and Craig previously from another incident. But he was pissed because Mitch was claiming his as a world record, but he hadn't entered it as a world record. So it's not legally the world record. So it was costing him business, he felt. So he was going to the best of my recollection, he was going to sue Mitch for saying he has a world record buck because it was tainting his ability to make money off his little trailer, saying he does have the world
And that's
record.
why it disappeared like that.
That's why it disappeared like that. And then per your, what you just said a minute ago, I called Tira O'Brien, who has now passed away, but she was the scoring chairman, or she did the scoring records, entered them into the bank, into the logbook. And I called her and she had her computer on. And I was talking to her about this Mitch buck, and she believed it. A lot of the CBM people believed it.
Mm-hmm.
And Mitch has had some legal issues previous to this happening, by the way. But I asked Tira, and I said, well, Tira, okay, do you have your computer on? She said, yes. I said, do me a favor. Tell me how many bucks have been entered in the CBM record book, whether it be road kills, pickups, gun, bow, whatever the weapon, that are over 25-inch spread. Because in my recollection, he had shot 4 more bucks. You said 3?
Right.
I think
and that was my faulty
4.
memory. It could have been 4, yeah.
I think he had shot 4 other bucks in the next 5 years after he shot the big one that were over 25-inch spread. And I think 3 of those were over 26 and 2 were over 28.
So that's 5 total.
That's 5
plus the 5-point shed that would have been a world record, probably.
Correct.
Or close to, well over 200
Correct.
inches.
So she looked it up and she said there's 8 bucks in the CBM record book that are over 25-inch spread, and Mitch's were not in the record. So
right.
Okay, so then I said, well, how
okay,
many
I said 4. It was 8. Whatever, it was a handful.
Yeah.
And
I said, how many were over 26-inch inside spread? And that nailed it down to 4. And then how many were over 27-inch inside spread? And there was 0. So he had shot in 5 bucks in a 5-year period or 6-year period. I don't recollect exactly. And all of them were over 25-inch spread, where there'd only been 8 total. And 4 of them were over 26-inch spread, which there had only been 4 total. And 3 of them were over 27-inch inside spread, which there had been 0. So I just can't even comprehend. I totally believe in taxidermist altered antlers. I can't even comprehend a person from a sandy soiled Grand Traverse County killing 5 bucks with that type of spread, when in the history of the state, he shot 3 over 28-inch spreads. And in the history of the state, nobody had ever
killed one. So let me stop you there once, because that's where that story kind of got, people took sides. And now, like I said, I'm going to say this is before the internet for 99% of the people. This is before the internet. This is before cell phones. This was a different era that you got to understand when this happened. And I'm going to say, because I worked here, wasn't my decision, but I worked here. We were under the premise that A, there's nothing more angry than a crowd, a mob, and B, you're not guilty. Show some proof that he did not do this. Who's to say he didn't do this? So we really tried to give him the benefit of the doubt. Okay. Then, like I said, now there are layers and layers and layers of this story that we're not going to go into, because I don't think we can. There's a lot more to it than that. But the sheer fact that it wasn't the fact that, well, maybe a guy did that. Well, okay, that's like saying I go to the old Kmart parking lot right now and I'm going to kill 5 Boone and Crockett class bucks. That's how ridiculous that whole thing became. The other thing is, I believe that there was actually predictions made. Like, when I kill this deer, you could lop off 2 of his, it was kind of like a hell hath no fury in that scoring circles. Because I don't know if you remember that part of the story. He said, well, I could lop off 2 of the G2s and he'd still be a record. I'm like, How do you even say that? You haven't even seen this deer. And then the photos, which don't even exist anymore, a couple. God, there's so many things. But remember the photo of the you could tell it was a buck mount in the brush. And it's like, oh, that's
Yes.
him. That was him. Remember that
Yeah.
photo?
Yeah.
That proves that he was alive and I was hunting him. I'm like,
Yeah.
my God, it was like I took a frozen dead rabbit and threw it up in the air. How they used to do those. Remember those photos where it's like a guy's like sitting there pretending to shoot and there's like a dead rabbit like flying through that. That was the outdoor photos at the time.
You want to hear something interesting? That buck of that half a 10-point stud, he had a picture. He showed me a picture of that buck supposedly 3 days prior to finding that stud.
Yeah.
And it was exactly what you said. It looked like something that was a deer mount.
And then there was remember the video, the recovery video of the.
I don't remember that.
I don't think you can find anymore, but there was a recovery video, and it was just like really bad. The deer was all wet, and it just, I don't know. But anyways, long story short is you're gonna say you're calling BS on the whole story.
Yeah. Can I also throw one thing else in? Grand Traverse County's got a lot of people in there. Traverse City's a relatively large city, and this was shot within miles of Traverse City. Now, if there was a buck of that magnitude around, somebody would see it. Somebody would have had a picture. Yeah. I mean, there is no way on God's green earth I could believe that story. There's no way.
Well, and then we showed up at the ATA show, and there was I'm not naming names, but there was the bow company selling the special bow. There was some benefit trying to be made there. One thing I will let everybody know is I did some investigative reporting on this a few years ago. I can't remember what year it was, but I tried to track down, because in those articles that we printed, there was 3 guys that vouched for the authenticity. One was a warden, but I found out he really wasn't a warden. I think he worked for a tribal something or other. I don't know.
Yeah, but there's an Indian casino actually up in Traverse City.
I could not track down any of those guys. I could not track down anybody I couldn't track him down. I don't even know if he's still around. I couldn't track down anybody who would stand by it. That allegedly stood by it from the first part. From the 3 or 4 people who claimed they saw it after he killed it. Yeah. After that lawsuit threat came, it was just okay. We're folding our tents and going home. There was nobody that said, yes, this thing is real. Yes, I saw it. Yes, I put my hands on it. And it was basically like the snuffleupagus. It just never existed. And it was supposedly burned up in a fire later. A couple of years
after. What's the odds of that?
Oh, yeah, that's right. We had a fire and it's gone now. Yeah. Man. Okay, everybody, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to thank one of our sponsors. Today's episode of Deer Talk Now podcast is brought to you by Scent Killer Gold Laundry Detergent with Power Boost Plus from Wildlife Research Center. Featuring ultra-concentrated odor-fighting power and ultra-premium dirt and stain-removing powder, Scent Killer Gold provides twice as many loads per ounce compared to regular Scent Killer laundry detergent. I use this stuff year-round, not just for hunting season. I have allergies. This stuff is hypoallergenic. It's scent-free. I use it on all my clothes. No, I don't smell like a GQ guy when I go out or anywhere, but Scent Killer Gold laundry detergent really helps me, and it's very economical. You only have to use that little cap. That's it. One little cap of that stuff in an entire extra large load of laundry. Pull your clothes out, smell it. There's not going to be any scent there at all. It's pretty incredible stuff. Take your scent elimination to an extreme level by looking for those gold caps. Wildlife actually owns the copyright on the color of those caps because a lot of other competitors have been trying to rip it off and have their packaging look like Scent Killer Gold. Get some at your local sporting goods dealer or check it out at wildlife.com.
And I'm not 100% positive on this, but I had heard somebody was trying to do some DNA testing on it to see if it was actually from that area, because they could tell. And the cape and everything had been spoiled, and that was all gone as well. So, and as well as I do, when you kill a mature buck and you're going to get it mounted, you take care of all the stuff that you need to get it found it. But,
Even if you didn't care, because I remember at the time, it was like, I wouldn't care. If it was a world record, I'm not going to enter it in a book. Well, you could make money. I don't care. I can actually see somebody going to that extreme because I think I could do it. Like, no, screw you guys.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm not going to do that. But the fact that this thing went away, the fact that nobody would actually vouch that it was real, bless his soul, Larry Huffman. I had to go around with him. It was not too long after that. And Larry was very smart. He was very smart. He was almost like a little CSI detective. And he was showing me all the colorations, and he said, see that color, remember the purple color on the antlers? That's a common chemical they use for this or that, the other thing. And I wouldn't believe him. I wanted to believe that this thing was real. I wanted to believe that the Easter Bunny was real. And
well, keep this in mind, Dan. If you're the CBM scoring chairman and you've put all of your Michigan Bucks in the record book,
and
which he had done,
yes,
and he showed me what would have been a new world record if the shed was real. I mean, he was actually, I think Mitch was trying to get something as a world record because he got his, state record deer in with no problem. I just don't think he thought he was going to have the things stuck up his yin yang as far as getting it checked by everybody. And I don't think he thought there would be that big of a procedure and getting it, x-rayed and stuff for the, to make it valid. I just don't think he thought about all that stuff. And when that all caved in, he just let it go. And two of the three guys, I believe, that looked at that deer were scorers for CBM.
Right. Yes, I got.
And they were both good
Lee
personal
Holbrook,
friends
Brown,
of his.
Gary
Berger,
Lee Holbrook, and Al Brown. Those were from the article.
Yeah.
Now let me play devil's advocate. Now I'm a Christian person. I was told by many other people back in the day, Mitch has had his problems. He's had his personal problems, whatever, but he was a good hunter. Was there a time when you knew him that, like, yeah, this guy is, that first deer that he killed was a state record? I mean, was he killing deer and did this whole antler illness just, you think, envelop that whole situation?
That's kind of what I think happened, yeah. I think he just
I've seen it happen a lot over the 30
Oh,
years.
it happens all the time.
Somebody kills a big buck, especially on TV. Holy crap. Look out. Because now here they come. It's like
what happened to Noel Feather.
Yep. I'm a rock star. I got to keep this. I know a lot of people that has happened to, and that's why I've really held to my big or small, I'll shoot them all mentality,
I don't wish any bad will ill on Mitch. He was a nice guy. He's a different type of guy. He's very much to himself. But yeah, I think he got caught up in the whole, I've got a state record. I want to get more notoriety. I'm going to, try somehow or another to get a world record. And then it just caved in on him, in my opinion.
Can you imagine if that would be today? Because look at today. Look, I can say their names as public figures. Look at the Bomars. You mess up, you're going to get tarred and feathered beyond belief.
You're done. You're done in this industry.
You're done.
Absolutely. Yes.
Can you imagine if that was today? If somebody shot a deer and they Frankensteined it together, it's like, here, it's got a 35-inch wide spread, 14-inch twos.
Yeah. Well, even the guys that have legitimately killed big bucks, like Mike Beatty, who had the archery world record, he got scrutinized big time, but he stood up to it and he followed it through. He got it scored and everything was legit.
But now let's just talk about that for a second. I don't want to make this too long, but what about today? Because there's deer farms everywhere, and I know guys that say if they can't have a yearling buck hit 180 inches as a yearling, as an 18-month-old deer, it's called buck. Get it out of here.
Right.
So what can you believe today? Can you? Yeah. Can you believe anything today? Or
no, I can't. I question any big buck I see. If somebody shows me a monster buck from Michigan, I question the validity of it. Did he shoot it in a suburb of Detroit or Grand Rapids? Did he shoot it in an enclosure and enter it in the book? We had a guy, I'm not going to mention his name. He was on the cover of Woods and Water magazine, which is our regional magazine. And it was the new state. It was going to be the new state record crossbow kill. And this is like 3 years after full inclusion crossbow passed. So it was 100, I think it was 182-inch typical. And they put his picture on the cover of the magazine. Come to find out, John Neville, who's a very good friend of mine, he was the president of CBM at the time, Commemorative Bucks of Michigan. He told me that he had a phone call from an enclosure, and the guy from the enclosure said that buck that's on the cover of that magazine, yep, it was not only not shot with a crossbow, it was shot with a muzzleloader, and it was shot in my enclosures, and I have pictures of that buck.
Oh my gosh.
So John, and that guy was a scorer. The guy that had that buck, that shot that buck, was a scorer in Michigan, and he had another buck in the CBM books with a bow. John had the task of calling that guy and going over to his house and telling him what had happened. And I mean, that guy had, obviously they removed his other buck from the record book, and how embarrassing is that? Yeah. So he shot an enclosure buck and claimed it was shot with a crossbow, when in reality it was shot with a muzzleloader, and it came out of an enclosure trying to enter it in the CBM book. Wow. And he did have it entered. They just had to take it out.
I'm going to add one.
It happens all the time.
I'm going to add one of my own stories, because this happened at Archery Trade Show. This was not too far off the Rompola Buck era. I was going to say this probably early 2000s. So I'm at the Archery Trade Show. Oh, no, I got to back up. It was before the Archery Trade Show, so it was right during the rut. Guy from Wisconsin kills this buck. Beautiful buck. And we never, we never chase big buck stories. People say, oh, the reason why you guys ran that Rompola Buck story is to sell magazines. No, we didn't. I can tell you of the magazine industry. I knew what the sell-through percentage on magazines was. We weren't going to sell more. We thought it was a newsworthy story at the time. But anyways, this guy kills this.
It was a big deal at the time.
It was a big deal. So this guy kills this buck. I'm going to say it's probably pushing 190. Big, beautiful buck. And calls us, do you want this story? I'm like, sure. I say, we can't pay for it. We don't pay for these stories, but we'll write a story about it. So I write the story. I'm going to have to go dig this up and find it. But I write the story. The guy tells the story. He was on his honeymoon. He comes home from his honeymoon. On the day he gets back from his honeymoon, his opening day of bow season, he goes out, sits all day, and kills this deer. Okay. I believed him. And I honestly think he did. I think he did it legit. I think he might have been hunting over bait, but beside the fact, at that time, I think baiting was legal. No, whatever. That's fine. Kills the deer, and he tells me the story, and he is just so unassuming. I went out there, and, I don't have a lot of money. I got mismatched camo, and I have this bow with, whatever arrows, and it was just a hodgepodge like I hunted, like most everybody hunted. Just a hodgepodge, went out, got lucky, shoots this deer. I run the story. It was a little one-page buckshot story. I don't think we called it buckshots at the time, but we called it something else. That's like, say, November, December. Right, the article comes out. January, we go to the Archery Trade Show, which it was actually the AMO at the time, Archery Manufacturers Organization show. And I go there, and here's this guy, because I recognized him. He's got a pressed shirt with Bow Company on it. He's got a hat from a call that he said he used. He had all this stuff, and they had big posters. You could come up to the podium, and he'd sign these posters. I'm like, you lying. No, I've got the picture. You shot this with like an old Pro line and, full-length Easton arrows and that had feathers. You weren't using carbon arrows, and you weren't using this broadhead. But I've seen that. And right. I've seen how, I don't know what ever happened to that guy, and if he's watching this, I hope he doesn't call me out on it, but I've seen it, take that route, and then I've also seen it from especially TV guys who are like, they think they're curing cancer here. No. And the other thing, too, is, as you and I know, he's going to make millions of dollars. No, he's not. You're not going to make millions of dollars off. Somebody might throw you a free bow or something, but that's not going to, it's mostly just an ego-driven thing.
Oh, you took the words right out of what I was going to say. Deer hunting, no matter what people want to say, it's a very egocentric activity. Even for me, I always try, since the 70s, I've always tried to
why is that?
The biggest buck in the area. attention. People like to have attention. You know, you got.
Was that the
standing
first
around and-
dopamine? Is that the first social media before we had social media?
I don't know. When I'm doing like in stores, somebody pulls out a picture and they, you know, on their cell phone, wow, look at this. You know, there's 3 or 4 guys standing there. Look at this nice 8-point I got. Well, next guy pulls out his phone. Well, I got this big 10-point. You know,
that ain't nothing.
Like
mine's bigger.
It's just a who's bigger contest. And you know, that's one thing I've got to throw in here, because the hunting public, which is an online bunch of guys, you know, they've been hunting public land. Now they're hunting in Iowa and Kansas and Nebraska and Missouri. So they're hunting in really phenomenal states where the public land is actually better than most private land in places like we hunt. But those guys have really brought a lot of light and limelight, in my opinion, to hunting public lands. And, you know, they're making killing 100-inch deer in hard to hunt areas cool, which I love that they're doing.
I'm glad you take a different look at it than I do. I mean, I'm sure they're nice guys, but I'm like, yeah, right. Come up here and go to the Chequamegon National Forest and do that. Good luck. You know.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. They're
kill a branch antler buck up there, but we see these kids are like, oh yeah, I'm going to hold out for 130 on public land. Yeah, good luck, buddy. Let me know when you. Please send me a picture when you do. And then he sends you a picture. No offense, sends a picture of a 70-inch deer. Yeah, that's 130. No, it's not. You know, he's got 3-inch brow tines. He's got 4-inch 2s and 5-inch 3s, and he's got 15 inches of mat. I'm not trying to get into scoring, but I do actually agree with you. It is nice because, you know, it's always about recruitment, you know, and me, these guys can tell you, I can sneak down that pessimistic hole, you know, and just say, yeah, this sucks. You know, these guys are liars. But at the same time, you know, at least like you said, they are bringing light.
They are bringing limelight.
Giving hope to the guys who don't have $350,000 to buy 40 acres of hunting land. You know, I mean, so
yeah.
To that point, I'd agree with you.
And in my opinion, some of probably the best bow hunters in the country are just local hunters, maybe in Virginia, West Virginia, New Hampshire, New York, Pennsylvania, hunting public land.
Don't forget the South. And I know you don't hunt down there much. I know you don't hunt down there much, but Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, Virginia, my God, if you can kill a deer down there, you got to be pretty damn good.
You're badass. If you're killing a 2.5-year-old 70, 80-inch, 14-inch 8-point, you're a badass hunter if you're doing that. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
You were just
thank you, John. I'm going to cut us off. I hope that didn't go too long. Thanks for your insights. I know that this would be fun, and I think this was my funnest one so far. But appreciate all your insights.
Well, you're more than welcome.
These bucks and everything else. Thanks for joining us for the Deer Talk Now podcast. For John Eberhart, I'm Dan Schmidt. We will see you next time.